If I had gone home when she told me to, maybe I'd still sleep at night. But I opened that door. And I saw what no apprentice was meant to see. I wanted to learn tailoring. My cousin found me a spot under a woman named Madame Oduak, whose clothes were so perfect that even rich widows from Abuja sent fabric to her. But something was off. Her shop was at the very end of Ibie Street, where the gutter stayed flooded and the neighbors never greeted. No signboard, no loud generator, just a faded wooden door with a rusted padlock that never actually locked. I should have known from the first day that something was wrong. She looked at me long before she let me speak. Not at my face. At my fingers. Then she nodded and said, "You do. Don't ask too many questions. Just learn." I thought it was just her personality. Older women could be like that. She didn't use pins. She measured with her eyes. She never cursed, never shouted, never smiled. But her clothes. Her stitches were like spells, flawless, flowing, precise. Within 2 months, I could hem a blouse with invisible thread. But despite the quiet, despite the skill, strange things started to pile up. Rule 1, every Friday, she sent me home by 6 p.m. sharp. Rule 2, I was never allowed to open the second door in the shop. Rule 3, she never worked in the open on weekends, but by Monday morning, her work table would be full of freshly finished clothes I never saw her sew. I broke none of these rules, until the night it rained. That Friday, the clouds had gathered since afternoon, but I was stubborn. I stayed late, trying to finish one stubborn waistline Madam had told me to redo. She left at her usual time, saying, "Make sure you leave before the 6th hour." I laughed it off and kept walking. By the time I looked outside, the rain was angry. I packed quickly, rushing to take my umbrella when I realized I left my small purse, the one with my ATM card and my mother's lucky pendant, inside the forbidden room. I had forgotten I dropped it there when I helped sweep in the morning. I should have waited till Monday. But I had already learned how to unlock the back latch. The second room was pitch black. I used my phone torch. There were no mirrors, no machines, just 3 large dress mannequins in the center, all dressed in white lace, standing shoulder to shoulder, facing the wall. At first, I thought I was alone. Then I saw the purse on a stool in the far corner. I bent to grab it and heard a soft dragging sound. I froze. Something had moved behind me. When I turned, one of the mannequins was no longer facing the wall. It was facing me. I stepped back. No wind. No window. Nothing else had moved. Then I noticed the mannequins had toenails. Real ones. The kind that grow yellow with age. I dropped the purse and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe properly until I reached the main road, soaked to the skin. Madame Oduak didn't speak about it. She just looked at me long and hard as I entered the shop, her eyes scanning my wrist, where the pendant now hung. "Did you go in?" she asked. I lied. "No more." She nodded. "Good. That door opens by itself sometimes. You should keep away." But from that day, she began treating me differently. She stopped giving me real fabrics to practice on. She sent me to fetch small errands far from the shop. She locked the door to the second room more often, and when she forgot to, there was always a thick candle burning at the entrance, with red powder poured in a circle. Weeks passed. One Wednesday, while ironing a white wrapper she had sewn that morning, I noticed something strange. As I pressed the cloth, it hissed. Like a snake. Just once. I froze, looked around. Nobody else was in the shop. I pressed it again. Nothing. I dropped the iron, folded it quickly, and that was when I noticed the tiny writing stitched into the hemline. Not in thread. In human hair. The hair was woven into Igbo script, I swear it read. Bury me before moon touches earth. I dropped it like poison. That night I couldn't sleep. I started hearing the hum of the sewing machine in my dreams. Not the normal sound, a slow, groaning rhythm, like someone breathing through a torn throat. I began to observe something else. Every Monday, new clothes appeared, white lace, sometimes deep wine-colored wrappers with bronze beads, but no customer ever entered to collect them. And every Thursday, a man would come. He never knocked. Just walked in, wearing dark glasses and sandals no matter the weather. He'd sit. Madame Oduak would bring out 2 large black bags. She would never speak while he was there. He would never respond. After 15 minutes, he'd leave. I asked once, "Is he your brother?" She answered without looking up. "He's the courier. He knows the way to the other side." I stopped asking. Then came the day I truly lost peace. Madame Oduak sent me to bring out a white lace from the forbidden room. She handed me the key and said, "Open. Look only for the cloth I described. Nothing else." I was shaking, but I obeyed. The lace was easy to spot, neatly folded on a low stool. But as I turned to leave, I tripped on something soft. I looked down. There, under one of the tables, wrapped tightly in oak, was a body. Small. Still. And from the edge of the cloth, a baby's foot was sticking out. The skin wasn't pale. It was fresh. Warm. Not dead. I ran outside screaming. But when I returned with neighbors, the room was locked again. Madame stood calmly at the door. "There's nothing inside," she said softly. "She's not ready yet." I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing the hum of the sewing machine in my head. Not the normal kind. This one was slower, deeper, like someone dragging thread through flesh. And the face of that baby, or whatever it was, it wouldn't leave my mind. When I returned to the shop on Monday, Madame Oduak didn't speak to me. She didn't even look up. She sat by her machine, stitching into white satin, as if nothing had happened. But the back room door was open. Not wide. Just enough. I saw candle smoke curling through the gap, and the faint sound of whispering, not voices, just threads brushing fabric, like something being sewn in silence. I wanted to run. I should have. But I needed answers. That Thursday, the courier came again. He looked like he always did, tall, dry-skinned, in dark glasses and a frown that never moved. But this time, instead of leaving after 15 minutes, he spoke. Not to Madam. To me. I was sorting wrappers in the corner when he turned and said, "Your hands are no longer light. You've touched what you shouldn't." I froze. Madame Oduak said nothing. She just continued sewing like she hadn't heard. I asked him, "Who are you?" He smiled, a dry smile, like paper tearing. "I carry them," he said. "To the river." But some souls struggle. Especially when they are sewn too tight. That was the last thing he said before lifting the black bags and leaving. That night, I cried in my cousin's bathroom. I thought of quitting, but my spirit wouldn't let me. Something was drawing me back. One afternoon, while sorting pieces of leftover material, I found a strange folded wrapper behind the shelf. It wasn't there before. Burgundy. Heavy. But when I unfolded it, blood. Not soaked. Just one thin trail running from the center seam, as if something inside had tried to crawl out. The edges were stitched with baby teeth. I dropped it and screamed. Madam came out from the inner room, wiped her hands, and said calmly, "If you want to leave, now is the time. Before the moon speaks." I asked, "What do you sew for them?" She paused. "Passage. They don't cross over naked." Then she added, "But some return." That Friday, I didn't go home. I hid inside the shop storage room after pretending to leave. My heart beat so loud I thought it would betray me. Around 11:53 p.m., I heard it. Footsteps. But not just madam's. 4. Maybe 5 different sets. Slow. Barefoot. Then the sewing machine started. I peeked through a crack in the wooden panel. She wasn't alone. There were figures sitting in a circle, covered in white wrappers. Their heads bowed. Their skins were grey, but they were breathing, shallow, like newborns. And on her lap was the baby. Alive. Eyes wide open. She was sewing directly into its skin. Not deep, not blood, but threading small white beads into its chest like a living fabric. The child didn't cry. She whispered, "You must not speak when you wear the cloth of silence." Then one of the wrapped figures turned and looked directly at me. It was my mother. Except, my mother had died 3 years ago. And she was smiling. The next morning, I confronted Madam. I told her what I saw. She didn't deny anything. She simply said, "Some tailors mend clothes. I mend souls. The ones that return too early must be quieted. You saw your mother because you still hold her name in your spirit." I wanted to run, to scream, but I couldn't. She looked at me and said, "You're not just an apprentice, Ebra. You're a weaver. That's why you see." Then she handed me a small wrapped bundle. Inside, a baby-sized white blouse. The hem was stitched in black hair, but this time, it spelled my name. Ebra. Daughter of cloth. Walker between. That night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, something knocked on the door. 3 slow knocks. My cousin was asleep. Nobody else should be knocking at midnight. I crept to the door and whispered, "Who is it?" Silence. Then, a whisper. Not a voice. A rustle. Like a wrapper being folded. Then I heard my name. Ebra. After that midnight knock and the voice whispering my name, I knew it was no longer a secret. I had been chosen for something I didn't want. I didn't tell Madam what I heard. But she could feel it. That morning, she said, "You're already stitched, Ebra. Even your silence has thread in it." She handed me a folded blouse. Baby-sized. At the hem, in red thread, was a new name. Amarachi Uduak. I didn't know who that was. And I didn't want to find out. That evening, as I tried to pretend everything was normal, my cousin Gozi pulled me aside. "Ebra, tell me the truth. What is happening in that shop?" I froze. She held up her phone, filled with pictures. Images of me sewing alone in the shop late at night. Madam Oduak standing over my shoulder. Bags being taken away by the courier. One picture showed the back room door slightly open, with something tall and human-shaped standing in the shadows. "I've been watching," Ngozi whispered. "I don't know what she's doing, but you're changing. You talk in your sleep now. You hum while dreaming. And yesterday, I found a bead sewn into your pillow. I didn't even know how it got there." Ngozi looked me in the eyes and said, "We are leaving. Tonight. Don't tell her. Don't go back." But I had to go back. Not to stay, but to destroy something. The unfinished blouse. The one with my name on it. If I left it, I knew she'd finish it without me. And once it was worn, I would never be free. So at 5 p.m., I returned. Ngozi waited in the kiki, phone in hand, engine running. Inside, the shop was dim. Too quiet. The candles were already lit. I walked to the back room, and there it was. The blouse. Hanging from the ceiling. But now it was wet. Dripping slowly onto the floor, not with water, but with milky liquid, like the amniotic fluid from a birth. I reached for it. And Madam appeared behind me. "You're leaving," she said calmly. "You can leave. But the cloth follows. The child follows. The stitch is already under your skin." She stepped forward, eyes black. I stepped back. Then, Ngozi burst through the door. She wasn't alone. She had brought a pastor, her old classmate from secondary school. He didn't ask questions. He raised a small black Bible and began to pray in tongues, shouting as he threw salt and oil in the corners of the room. The walls trembled. Madam screamed, not in pain, but in fury. Her voice sounded like women crying, babies wailing, sewing machines grinding. The lights exploded. The blouse burst into flame. Ngozi dragged me out. We ran. That night, we didn't go home. We slept at a church in Elelanwo. I woke up screaming 3 times, each time to Ngozi holding me and praying. By morning, I felt lighter. Like something had been cut from my chest. We went back the next day, but the shop was gone. Not closed. Not abandoned. Gone. As if the land had never held a building at all. The neighbor said, "Shop. There's never been a shop there. Just empty land." But we know what we saw. 2 weeks later, I found a small box on my bed. No one knew how it got there. Inside, a spool of red thread. A small pair of scissors. And one final note, written in beautiful script. "Some stitches don't need cloth. Some apprentices run. But the thread always remembers the hand that held it. Madam Uduak." I burned the note. But sometimes at night, when it's very quiet, I still hear the sewing machine humming.